There are four main building blocks that you can use when creating Android apps. The first is what is called an activity. An activity, for the most part, can be thought of as a screen that you can interact with. Usually, you create applications that have multiple screens that make it up. So, therefore, applications are typically composed of multiple activities. The second building block is called a service. A service runs in the background as a faceless task. Services don't have a UI. Sometimes they're started and run until they've completed, maybe like playing an MP3. Other services can be bound to an activity and maybe take part in some sort of inter-process communications, some sort of IPC. So perhaps the service downloads data from the internet whenever an activity asks it to, and maybe provides that data back to the activity when it's completed. The third building block is called a broadcast receiver. These they respond to system events or notifications. For example, if the battery is low, a system-wide broadcast gets distributed. Your receiver can listen for that event and maybe adjust the way your application works to consume less battery. You can also build and distribute your own events and have your own broadcast receivers listen for them. The final building block is called a content provider. As I mentioned in the previous video, the process isolation used in Android results in an application only being able to directly access its own data. What if you wanted to get another application's data though? For example, what if you need to read from the address book or the contact list? Well, this is where content providers come in. An application can choose to expose this data to another application using this concept of a content provider. The data itself is typically stored out in the file system or maybe in a SQLite database, but the content provider makes that accessible to other apps. So a lot of times when you do this kind of work, you're going to only use one or two of these building blocks. Maybe you'll build an app that's composed strictly of activities, or maybe mostly activities in a service or something along those lines. But it is possible there might be examples where you could even use all four of these. And so a scenario that's being pointed out here is that maybe you have some sort of like a weather application. Maybe you have a couple activities. One of them is a screen that displays current weather information for a particular city. And maybe you have another screen that allows you to customize the app. Maybe select which city to display the weather information for. Perhaps that same weather application uses a service, try that again here, service, to download in the background the weather data, maybe the forecasts. Maybe the weather application can use a broadcast receiver to maybe listen for temperature changes. Anytime the temperature changes, maybe the service distributes that broadcast out. The broadcast receiver listens for that, and if a temperature changes, maybe it updates the status bar, the notification bar, and updates that temperature so that the user can see that. Maybe your weather application can have a content provider. Perhaps it needs to or desires to expose out its information to other activities. Maybe there's other applications that want to know what the current temperature is, or they want to gather or read historical data from your application. You can create a content provider to expose that data.